A red rainstorm warning hit early as torrential rain pounds Fanling and Sheung Shui, flooding multiple districts. Meanwhile, downpours have turned deadly across multiple parts of China, claiming more than 20 lives. And authorities warn Hongkongers against traveling to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, citing Ebola risk. Good evening, you're watching Cable News, I'm Quentin Yan. Hong Kong issued its first red rainstorm warning of the year in the early hours of Thursday, with torrential downpours triggering widespread flooding across the northern New Territories. A resident whose home was inundated described it as the worst flooding he had ever experienced. Cheryl Yun tells us more.
Heavy rain battered Hong Kong early Thursday, with vehicles seen navigating floodwaters along Fanling Road in the northern New Territories. Footage showed muddy rainwater overflowing streets and surging into buses, forcing passengers to wade through the water on foot. In some areas, floodwaters reached halfway up car doors. At Long Yok Tau interchange, a footbridge's drainage pipe was dislodged, sending rainwater cascading down. In Kutung's Hangtao village, flooding struck hard and persisted through the night into the morning. Inside one affected house, muddy water left stains across floors and walls. The owner, surnamed Kwok, said it was the most serious flooding he had encountered. It briefly stopped raining around 2 a.m., so I started cleaning up. But the heavy rain returned at 4 a.m. and turned this place upside down, he said. Kwok said he had been up all night dealing with the mess, describing how the water rose so high that his shoes were left floating inside the house. The Drainage Services Department received 7 flooding reports and deployed its drainage robot, water pumping dragons, to help clear accumulated water. The observatory first issued the amber rainstorm warning Wednesday night at 9 p.m. As the downpour intensified, it was upgraded to a red warning at 2:40 a.m. Thursday. The red signal remained in force for more than 2.5 hours before being downgraded back to amber at 5:15 a.m. and fully cancelled at 9:30 a.m. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
Separately, torrential rains have sparked deadly floods across the mainland, killing more than 20 and leaving many missing. In Guangdong, over 16,000 have been evacuated, while a bridge in Enping, Jiangmen, was washed away, and Shenzhen has moved to full alert rainstorm defense. Evelyn Bai has more information.
A southward-moving rain band has unleashed torrential rains across much of Guangdong since Wednesday, with Enping logging a record 449 millimeters in 24 hours, sweeping away a bridge and forcing Enping and Kaiping to shut work and classes. A road section in Maoming collapsed as floodwaters surged up from under the bridge. From Tuesday to Wednesday, Yangchun saw over 200 millimeters of rain, with Xiashuang Station hitting more than 1,000 millimeters by Wednesday night. An elderly person was trapped by floodwaters as rescuers raced in rubber dinghies to a spot more than 20 meters offshore to pull them to safety. Authorities have deployed over 500 responders to villages and evacuated over 8,500 people across the city. Meanwhile, Shenzhen issued the highest-level red rainstorm warning on Wednesday as rainwater flooded the Shenzhen-Zhongshan Link Passage. Meteorologists said as Guangdong has entered the Dragon Boat rainy season, the downpour is expected to continue until Friday. Several provinces and cities have been hit by downpours, with red rainstorm warnings in multiple areas of Jiangxi, where houses collapsed and over 1,000 acres of farmland were flooded. The deluge in Guizhou has triggered landslides, leaving several missing as authorities deploy 150 more rescuers with radar detectors and search dogs. Meanwhile, landslides in Shimen County, Hunan, have cut off village access roads. But rescue teams have now opened both land and air routes to reach the affected villages, search for survivors, and help evacuate residents. Evan Bai, Cable News.
The SAR government has issued a red outbound travel alert for the Democratic Republic of the Congo as authorities race to prevent a rapidly spreading Ebola outbreak from reaching Hong Kong. Under the directive, residents are urged to avoid all non-essential travel to the Central African nation, where the Department of Health warns the risk of cross-border transmission has sharply increased. Travelers returning from the DRC or neighboring Uganda within the past 21 days must declare their travel history upon arrival at Hong Kong International Airport. Port health officers have also intensified screening for passengers arriving via African transit hubs. Meanwhile, the hospital authority says public hospitals are fully prepared, with sufficient isolation facilities to quarantine suspected cases immediately. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization said a potential vaccine against a rare species of Ebola behind the current outbreak in the DRC could take 6 to 9 months to become ready, as suspected cases in the country rose to 600, with 139 suspected deaths. Evelyn Bai reports.
In DRC's northern province of Ituri, healthcare workers have been handling the remains of suspected victims with disinfectant at every step. A total of 51 cases have been confirmed in DRC and 2 in neighboring Uganda. The WHO said the scale of the epidemic in the country is much larger, while assessing the risk as high at national and regional levels, but low globally. With protective gear, including gloves, masks, arriving in DRC, clinics in the worst-hit areas have set up Veronica buckets at entrances. However, local health workers report still working without adequate protection, and some facilities are being overwhelmed. Separately, several U.S. citizens who may have been exposed to the Ebola virus were taken to hospitals in Germany and the Czech Republic for treatment and isolation. The Bundibugyo virus at the center of this outbreak has no vaccine or specific treatment for now. 2 possible candidate vaccines are being developed, but neither has undergone clinical trials, meaning they are 6 to 9 months away from use, a WHO advisor said. Ebola spreads through direct contact with bodily fluids and broken skin, causing severe bleeding and organ failure. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
A 70-year-old taxi driver charged over a fatal crash in Ngau Tau Kok last week was granted $50,000 bail, with conditions including a driving ban and travel restrictions. The elderly driver, appearing in Kwun Tong Magistrates Court in a wheelchair, faces 2 counts of dangerous driving causing death and 2 of causing grievous bodily harm. He allegedly lost control of his taxi on the afternoon of May 13th at the junction of Chonghua Road and Choi Ha Road in Ngau Tau Kok, mounted the curb and plowed into a sitting-out area. 1 woman died at the scene, while another succumbed to critical injuries in hospital days later. 2 taxi passengers were also seriously injured. Under bail conditions, the defendant must surrender his travel documents, remain in Hong Kong, report to police weekly, and is barred from driving. The case was adjourned to August 13th for further police investigation. Residents of the fire-ravaged Wanfu Court began a second round of returns to their flats in batches, as some continue to call on in-situ rehousing or redeveloping on the original site, while others spoke out about the poor conditions of their transitional housing. Evelyn Bai reports.
Braving the rain, displaced residents of Wang Yan House, Wang Sen House and Wang Tai House brought trolleys, backpacks and even big buckets, returning to their flats to collect what they could. One Wang Yan House resident said he hoped to retrieve childhood family photos and bid farewell to his flat. He said the government has been passing the buck, and his family has been stuck in transitional housing for 6 months, a tiny room with no cooking facilities and a leaky roof when it rains. Another resident said she wanted to recover her children's belongings and toys after they were deeply impacted by being unable to return home following the blaze. Regarding long-term housing arrangements, which offer multiple choices including acquisition of ownership and a flat-for-flat deal. One Wang Tai House resident said none of the options suited her, as those locations were too remote, such as in Tongchong and Cheongguano. She wanted to stay in Taipo, but was told she would have to wait 4 years. One Wang Yan House resident said he and many other residents had hoped for in-situ development. But the proposal was rejected by the government, so he could only accept a cash acquisition for now. Separately, Wang Chang and Wang Kin houses will open between Sunday and Tuesday, followed by Wang Tao and Wang Xing houses. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
U.S. President Donald Trump said he's willing to wait a few more days to get the right answer from Iran regarding the latest ceasefire proposal. Meanwhile, the pause in military strikes has reportedly heightened tensions with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Cheryl Yun reports.
Trump, who earlier ordered a pause in planned military strikes against Iran, described the situation as right on the borderline, but stressed he will not rush into an agreement due to the upcoming midterm elections.
Believe me, if we don't get the right answers, it goes very quickly. We're all ready to go. We have to get the right answers. It would have to be a complete 100% good answers. And if we do, we save a lot of time, energy, and lives, most importantly. Could go very quickly, or a few days.
Trump had originally planned to resume operations on Tuesday, but delayed the action at the request of regional allies. The decision has heightened tensions with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The two reportedly had a heated discussion, with Netanyahu expressing disappointment and arguing that postponing strikes was a mistake. Sources said the U.S. hopes for a diplomatic deal, while Israel pushed for resumption of military action against Iran. However, Trump insisted that both he and Netanyahu are on the same page over negotiations to end the Iran war.
He's fine. He'll do whatever I want him to do.
Iran's foreign ministry said it is reviewing the new U.S. proposal, while the Revolutionary Guard warned that any further American aggression would cause the conflict to spread beyond the region. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
Now let's take a look at the stock market. The Hang Seng Index ended the day down 264 points. Top active stocks of the day: Tencent was down $16.20. Alibaba was down $5.90. Hua Hong Semiconductor was down $4.80, and Wellcell was down $4.10. Consumer prices in the city rose 1.7% year-on-year in April, undershooting forecasts and indicating that inflation remains contained despite rising global oil costs. The composite consumer price index matched March's pace but fell short of the 1.9% market expectation. Excluding one-off government relief measures, core inflation came in at 1.6%, also below forecasts. A government spokesperson attributed the modest increase mainly to quicker rises in fuel-related costs, driven by persistently high international oil prices amid Middle East tensions. Even so, price pressures in most other categories stayed broadly subdued, offsetting the energy-driven uptick. Looking ahead, Officials expect elevated oil prices to continue feeding into consumer costs in the coming months, with the extent depending on developments in the Middle East. Still, they believe muted pressures elsewhere will keep overall inflation in check. In snooker, local sensation Ng is back on top of the women's road rankings, reclaiming the #1 spot. After winning bronze at the Women's Road Championship, Ng has climbed 2 places in the road rankings to reclaim the #1 spot, fending off China's Bai Yulu and Thailand's Meng Nucharut, and returning to the summit for the first time since 2019. She said the firepower of younger players has grown stronger in recent years, making this ascent to road #1 even tougher, and pledged to keep training hard to stay at the top. Onto the weather now, mainly cloudy, a few showers and isolated thunderstorms tonight and tomorrow morning. Hot with sunny periods during the day. Temperatures will range between 27 and 31 degrees. That's our news tonight. I'm Quentin Yan. Thank you for watching. Good night.